Texas A&M has been in this league for 12 years, 13 years, whatever it is. Georgia has not gone to College Station to play football. Texas joins and Georgia goes there the year one. It's like it is unbelievable. Unbelievable.
Welcome to My God a Podcast. I'm Jim Wood. In this episode, John Powell and I are joined by our friend John Smith, as well as an appearance by Hunter Jones with a special guest. This is the 2024 season preview. And yes, we answer questions from you, our listeners. As always, remember to check out the newly redesigned MyGottaPodcast.com to see our latest merch. You can follow us on social media at MyGottaPodcast. Finally, if you need help with your website or your online presence, head over to workingwebmedia.com/dogs. Now, let's join the conversation in progress. All right, back for another episode of My Gotta Podcast, the 2024 season preview. I'm Jim. JP's with me as always. And if you're watching on YouTube, you see that we also have with us John Tweed Sports.
What's up, people? How's everybody doing?
I'm doing good,
man. Good. Look at the svelte John Smith.
Yeah,
That's right.
Looking lean and mean, like you've been ready from the off season.
I'm ready. I've been training, putting in my reps, both in the tailgate training and in moving my body a little bit more. So who knows, man? We're gonna do this quick tailgate at Clemson, but may just carry the thing all weekend down in Atlanta. Who knows? We're ready. We're ready.
I like it. I like it. You mentioned your preseason reps for the tailgating. What are you repping right now?
I am drinking this Fiddler toasted bourbon from ASW Distillery in Atlanta. So if you know ASW, I'm going to do. It's not sponsored, not a sponsor of the podcast yet that I know of. My God, a podcast. But Fiddler toasted bourbon. This is very high proof bourbon. They just released it last year, I believe, but very, very good. And of course, if you want to support Georgia NIL, you got the Hunker vodka from ASW Distillery. I didn't pick this bourbon to intentionally talk about ASW Distillery. It's just what was on the shelf and what I want to drink tonight. But it's kind of working out. So
I didn't realize ASW made the Hunker down.
They do. ASW and Georgia alumni Charlie Thompson and Jim Chastain. Shout out to ASW founders Charlie and Jim, Georgia alum and big supporters of UGA athletics. So love those guys.
Amen. Go
That's
dogs.
right.
Go dogs.
Charlie, fraternity brother of one Lou Wood, aka Flip Dog, also. So not at the same time. Was he social chair? I'm not sure.
I've got the
full
I've got
tilt.
the elite.
Nice.
The elite, John. We think alike. I also have the elite full tilt.
Full tilt.
The infinity bottle. This
The
is
infinity
99
bottle.
proof. It says so on the label. I don't know if you can see that, but who
I
knows?
think at this point mine's is slightly higher than 99 proof.
So actually, off season has been a little light on our side. One of the things of late, I do have an update because I know I texted you guys this. I had another good round tonight. I've been doing like a 9-hole golf league on Monday nights.
Ooh, Twilight golf.
Yep. So it's like after work thing, go play 9 holes. And it's a handicapped league. So which my handicap, if you keep playing the same 9 holes to the same course over and over again, you get better at it. So my handicap has gone down, at least there. So that's been good. But I am still in first place. Still the leader. Increased my lead after I actually shot my best round of the season tonight. So I'm having that was my opening before the game, before the recording. And now I get to say we have someone in the green room.
Uh-oh.
Who could it be?
Who could it be?
And we're gonna have to be like, you're live on the podcast.
Are we gonna do the sound?
Oh, see, I don't have that sound, but we could do like I don't know. Does that work? Is that close enough? We'll see.
Perfect.
Yeah, there we go.
Yes.
True Man makes his podcast debut taking a bottle.
Yeah, we got about 10 minutes, so I'm going to have to go figure out a topic.
Hunt, what are you sipping on?
Nada.
No. This podcast just became X-rated. That's a special gift for the folks on the YouTubes.
Oh man.
Welcome to the,
Yeah. Well, we lost that, Hunter. What'd you say?
I said, welcome to the nursery.
This is like especially amazing audio content for the audio listeners. So I will describe the situation. We've got Hunter Jones, fairly new dad, putting his son to bed, giving him a bottle. True Man is now making his podcast debut while taking a bottle. Although we did talk to True Man last week. Got a screenshot from that. Oh
There he
man,
is.
he's like out. Well, he's not out. He's enjoying that bottle.
He's getting
He's good.
close.
We're all getting drunk and he's getting milk drunk.
That's right. He's drinking for me.
There you go. How's fatherhood treating you, Hunt? I know
great.
that the off season has been kind to you in that regard.
Yeah, it's great. He's getting to the point now where he's like, I don't know, we were talking about it the other day, me and Meg, where he's like fun. Like the bad days are few and far between. And when they happen, you kind of know what the reason is now. He's either hungry or tired, and you can kind of put a stop to it real quick. But 95% of the time, he's just like getting a personality, and he's fun.
That's good stuff. It's good stuff. I remember the double coverage days. Stick to double coverage. It stays that way.
Yeah, I mean, we never went beyond man to man. We never had to foray into zone coverage. So
Same. Zone coverage, especially, Powell over here with 8 kids running around trying to. I mean, geez.
I mean, they're just running wild at the back of the end zone, like they're playing Ohio State or something. It's Arian Smith's gone deep.
I'm glad you turned around that way and you weren't talking about Marvin Harrison running behind our secondary. But
No.
Well, Hunter, actually, you know what? While we've got you, Hunter, we had a listener question that I want to have you give your answer, especially considering who our first opponent is and what happened in 2021. 51-7 GATA said, "Do we see black versus orange uniforms in the first game?"
I mean, as much as I would like to say it would be awesome, it would. There's not a shot. Not even a shot.
Agreed. I know.
No way in hell Kirby Smart is coming out in black uniforms. And I wish it would happen too. No way in hell that is
I think
happening.
the better question is, are we ever going to see the black jersey again?
Ever again.
It's a good question. It's a fair question. John's got the connections. What do you say, John?
We'll see him again. It's just a matter is, will we see him again under Kirby Smart, or will it be 12 years from now when somebody else is the head coach? And we're all old men, and then we're complaining about tradition at that point. But no, what I will say is, it's interesting to me. I'll just say this. I'll just put this out here. Georgia, went back to back. 12-0 regular season, back-to-back national champions, without wearing black jerseys. But then, didn't make the playoff without wearing black jerseys. So I think for me, I would like to see a little bit of variety in the jersey situation this year, at least at some point. You got a lot of night games this year. You've got, next year you're not going to see them because next year you got that insane home schedule. So at least this year you got all quote unquote tough teams on the road. So you got a lot of opportunity at home with a good bit of night games this year with this whole new TV schedule and conference expansion. And I mean, it feels like a good time to throw in a black jersey game and a night game in Athens this year if you're going to do it. But with Kirby, I don't know.
Totally
You mentioned the new TV schedule stuff. I mean, it's going to be interesting watching the games on ABC this year.
Yeah, I mean, everything is so different. The SEC on CBS is no more, and so the song is gone, or the song is still there.
No,
They
the
still have
song is there. It's going to be for the Big Ten on CBS. It's you're gonna hear dun, 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 and it's going to be Rutgers versus Maryland. I mean, like, what in the world are we even doing?
I think I sent John an Instagram video about that. Like you're playing like 1-4 Maryland versus Rutgers
or Indiana versus Minnesota, and dun, 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 dun. I'm like, what are we even doing right now?
Because the big noon kickoff is still Fox, and that's Big Ten, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Which Big Ten now has 18 teams, by the way.
Yeah, well, they've split between, it's because the Pac-12 is no more. I think that TV contract with the Big Ten, it's like you have, it wasn't dissimilar to what the SEC did with ESPN and CBS, but now you have like CBS and Fox. Are vying for like those two. I mean, I guess if there are big games in the Big Ten, maybe I don't know if they have big games, but if they have big games in the Big Ten, they're vying for the big games on the big nooner, and then you have CBS is going to get whatever they get, I guess.
Actual question that I legitimately don't know the answer to this is does the Big Ten have divisions now, or did they go divisionless like the SEC? Do you guys know? Because I have no idea.
They went, from my understanding, they went divisionless as well, because people were saying you could now have people were saying that the game may not mean as much anymore because you could have Michigan and Ohio State play and then turn right around and play again for the next week for the Big Ten championship.
Got it. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Which reminder, what we're trying to do here is kind of, in general, give kind of like a bit of a primer on the season because so much has changed. So to get ready for 2024 college football, if you find yourself thinking like who's going to win the SEC East and who's going to win the West, like that doesn't exist anymore. No East, no West. SEC championship game is just the top two records. And then, and there are crazy scenarios that are like possible of like teams being tied. So there definitely is room for like chaos of multiple teams with the same record and like flipping a coin or something. I don't know.
I was listening to Will and Tony talk about that on Waiting Since Last Saturday. I hadn't even thought about that. Like, what are the tiebreaker scenarios?
The SEC has not released tiebreaker scenarios yet, so no one knows.
Yeah.
So we don't even know what the rules are before we start the season.
Well, they're going to release them probably this week or next week, but they haven't officially released the tiebreaker scenarios, so like no one knows. But my guess is it'll be similar to the Big Ten, which is kind of it goes like essentially your head to head. If there's no head to head, then it goes like common opponents. If there's the same record versus common opponents, then it goes into like ranked team. Like it just goes down the list.
We've got a sleeping baby.
He didn't make it, so
there he is.
I'll leave y'all on this one more uniform thing. My hope is obviously we see a black jersey, but I also want to see the red pants again at some point. I feel like that was a good nod back to a traditional Georgia uniform that would be a welcomed alternative than just silver breeches all the time. And with that, tell them good night, buddy.
Good night, true man. Later,
there's absolutely no reason not to wear red pants.
Especially
on the road once
here.
Yeah.
There you go.
Later, guys. Go Dogs.
Later, Hunt. Go Dogs.
See you, Hunter. Go Dogs.
Red pants on the road at Tennessee and black jerseys at home. I will say NCAA college football, or I guess it's not NCAA college football. It's just EA Sports college football 25. No red pants as an option when you're playing as Georgia. They do have the black jerseys, so you can, but they don't have the red pants in there.
I mean, the red pants technically haven't been an option since the 80s until the 40-year anniversary of that one game. So I get it, but I just love that look a lot.
Yeah, for sure. Like I always say, good enough for Herschel, good enough for me. Let's see. While we're on the realignment, so just another couple of reminders on there. So the teams that went to the Big Ten from the Pac-12 were Oregon, USC, UCLA, and Washington. The Big 12 is now up to 16 teams by adding Arizona, Arizona State, Colorado, and Utah. So Colorado is now back in the Big 12. And then the ACC is 17 teams, and they added Cal, Stanford, and SMU.
Which is my favorite. When I think about the Atlantic Coast Conference, I think about Cal and Stanford immediately. It's just like it's like the old NL West
stalwarts.
Yeah, no, it's like when the Braves. It's like when the Braves were in the NL West.
Yeah.
In like the 80s and the early 90s when they were playing, it was like the NL West was like Houston and San Francisco and the Braves and like Cincinnati. Like it was just such a weird.
Yeah.
It's like a national division, but
the Falcons were in the NFC West back then too.
I mean, we've learned some geography everywhere except the ACC, I guess. But
yeah. What about okay, so let's see. So we hit those. So for SEC, we talked about no divisions. We talked about no SEC on CBS. Texas and Oklahoma come in. And I think the other thing to point out and make sure folks know is like this year's schedule. Like I have seen people say things like, oh, I thought like South Carolina was going to be a permanent opponent, but then on the schedule, like all that stuff not set. Like this year was a one-off. They decided to basically repeat this year's schedule next year, but flip-flop where everyone's playing. And then we still don't know. So there is no schedule model.
Let's be clear. The SEC has not announced any permanent opponents.
Exactly.
Like they literally, like after 2025, who knows? Because they haven't announced any model that has any permanent opponents. They haven't announced any model that will give some structure or semblance to like who you're actually going to play year over year. So, I guess we're going to see.
Do you think that means that they're trying to potentially add teams so that they don't have to get pigeonholed into those kinds of things?
I mean, Greg Sankey has already said everyone. I mean, we just have to take a step back. The SEC will add teams if it means more money for the SEC. And if it doesn't, then the SEC is not going to add teams. So Greg Sankey, the reason that they added Texas and Oklahoma when they did is because the TV rights were up for negotiation, like all that stuff. The timing all made sense for them to maximize another television contract. Now, what ESPN has said is like, we're not going to renegotiate a contract mid-contract. So Greg Sankey is like, well, there's no reason to add teams. Like, because literally his only reason for adding teams is if it means that ESPN is going to pay them more money for more games. And if they're not, then they're not going to add teams. So it's really just comes down to like, will ESPN give them more money for the games? Will they renegotiate a contract mid-contract? And because like you have like SMU join the ACC, and the SMU is literally getting nothing.
Yeah, from
the ACC. Like because the ACC couldn't renegotiate a contract to pay them, and so they were like, "Well, we'll join, and you don't have to pay. Like you don't have to give us anything," which is wild.
Yeah,
and so, but
they
the
just
SEC
wanted to get out of where they were.
Yeah, but the SEC is not going to do that. So I think the SEC personally, I think the SEC is set unless it comes down to like if the ACC implodes, then maybe. But like, who are you gonna pick up? I mean, and I'll say this because I know Clemson is next on the schedule for Georgia football. The SEC does not care about Clemson. Clemson is not a brand that is going to bring in a significant amount more revenue. Maybe Florida State, but you've already got Florida. Like it's like you start looking. It's like who's on the list that's going to bring.
I can come up with one.
Who?
Miami.
Yeah, but
in the Miami TV market.
Yeah, but like again, but you're already in like the state of Florida. Like,
yeah, it's like it's because it's all about. It's not even about like Miami TV market, but it's all about like, will ESPN look at that brand and be like, we will pay more for that team to play teams in your conference, and I just don't know who's on that list anymore. I think it's like you go back and geographically it doesn't make sense, and now they're in the Big Ten. But it's like Oregon may have been one of those, like USC may have been one of those. Like there were brands out there, but like they're not out there anymore. I mean, I think maybe Florida State and Miami, to your point. But I don't know, man. I feel like it's been a long time since Miami, and I'll say even Florida State has like really rang the bell when it comes to TV ratings and comes to an actual brand. Because if you think about like Texas and Oklahoma, like that makes total sense. Like Texas, it's like, dude, like that's just a money printing logo.
How mad is Texas A&M right now?
We wanted to do our own thing.
Dude, their overalls are so cinched up, so tight. I mean, they are like, it's like their overalls are just like, all cinched tight down there.
And we're still never gonna go play at A&M, by the way. Apparently,
that's what I love. What I love is like Georgia has not. Texas A&M has been in this league for 12 years, 13 years, whatever it is. Georgia has not gone to College Station to play football. Texas joins and Georgia goes there the year one. It's like, it is unbelievable. Unbelievable. I mean, you gotta like, if there is like little brother energy it is there for Texas A&M, because it is like Texas joined and they sent the best team in the conference there year one. You've been in there for 12 years and the best team in the conference has not come there a single time.
Yeah, it is. It is wild.
They are weird. They are weird though. the cult that is Texas A&M.
The Rebel Yell.
There's something.
Or the Yell, not the Rebel Yell, just the Yell leaders.
Yell leaders, yeah.
Little Trevor and Braylon and Kyle and Noah. They're all just there with their names across their overalls, just leading some yelling.
JP, do you feel like you have a grasp of how the new 12 team expanded playoff works? And at one point I wanted to do like a whole episode in the offseason to talk about that, but then like we didn't have many offseason episodes, so we didn't do that. So I didn't know, did we need a primer on how that works, or I'm letting you be the measuring point.
I mean, you
here.
might as well just do a quick review for anybody that doesn't know, because there definitely are some wrinkles about the 12-team playoff. Because isn't there a scenario where you've got a conference champ that is, potentially going to be ranked lower than a lot of teams in the SEC?
Yeah, I think the main thing to point out is that the college football playoff rankings do not match the college football playoff seedings. So like there's a ranking and then there's a seeding that's based on the rankings and other factors. So it's like, so there's 12 teams. The 4 highest ranked conference champions get seeded 1 through 4 and get a bye. So like even right there, right off the bat, let's say like, not that this would happen, but let's say Notre Dame goes undefeated 12-0 and is ranked number 1. They're not number 1 in the playoff. They might be ranked number 1, but they're not seeded number 1. Because they didn't win a conference, because they're not in a conference. So the highest
chaos. Talk about chaos should something like that happen.
Exactly. So the highest seed they can get is 5. Or even if you go back to like 2021, right, with Georgia, where Georgia lost the SEC championship to Alabama, made the 4-team playoff, Georgia would not be a top 4 seed in this new model at that point. The highest Georgia could be would be number 5, because you're not a conference champion. So they give that benefit, I guess they say, to the conference champions to be 1 through 4. And then the 5th highest ranked conference champion gets an automatic bid. That's just that they're in. So they could be ranked the 20th team in the country, but are the 5th highest ranked conference champion. And so they're in as the 12 seed. They don't have to be 12, right. They could be higher, but that's how it works. And then otherwise, everything else is just at large and then seeding accordingly.
Yeah. And so last year there were 5 Power 5 conferences. So it's not an apples to apples, but last year the example would be 13-0. Florida State would have not gotten a first round bye. They would have made the 12-team playoff, but based off of their ranking, because Michigan in the Big Ten, Washington Pac-12, Texas Big 12, and Alabama in the SEC would have all been ranked higher than Florida State as conference champions. Now there's only 4, so it kind of works itself out. But last year that would have been an example where you have an undefeated conference champion that you have teams with a loss ranked higher than them and getting a bye.
Yeah. So then you go
something that Will kind of harped on in the Waiting Since last Saturday talk about this topic was you're not looking for records or rankings, you're looking for wins is kind of what he was talking about. So now it becomes like where you could potentially have these 4 and 5 loss teams that could be ranked higher than someone that has like a, what do you call it? The Chanticleers, what was that? Western Carolina, Eastern Carolina?
That's Coastal Carolina.
Coastal Carolina. Yeah, Coastal Carolina, where it's like they are.
But yeah, so like, you know, the situation is, and I think what JP was talking about is like, it does matter more now that you win your conference than it does, you know, who you beat or looking, you know, style points or any of that type of stuff, because you can, you know, literally eke by, you know, and be a 11-1, 12-1 conference champion and have lost. Yeah. You could eke by, you could have lost to, you know, a good team, a ranked team, the only ranked team that you played. But if you turn around and win your conference, then you get the bye. And so,
yeah,
conference games matter a lot more than these like non-conference ranked, you know, like Georgia, for example, the Clemson game matters far, far, far less than playing at Kentucky or playing Mississippi State in Athens this year. Like those 2 games matter significantly more than the Clemson game. And that's a weird dynamic to think about, but it just does. It matters more, you know, Auburn matters more than Clemson, no matter what Auburn's record is. You know, so
not that I don't disagree with you that SEC matters more than like a random ACC team, but maybe I missed it. But so you're saying that if Clemson, let's say their only loss is to Georgia, that win matters less than the games against Kentucky and Mississippi State?
I think you're flipping
it. Yeah. So Clemson's only loss. So Clemson, what I'm saying is it matters more that Clemson wins the ACC and Georgia wins the SEC than if Georgia beats Clemson or Clemson beats Georgia. That matters. That doesn't matter. That game doesn't matter at all in terms of if you have 4 Power 5 conferences, those 4 conference champions, no matter their record, are going to get a bye at the end of the season. And so it matters that like the SEC schedule matters significantly more than any, you know, it used to be, okay, well, you want to book some quality non-conference opponents because that's going to make a difference in the final rankings and, you know, all those things. And now none of that matters. It's like, all right, you know, Georgia honestly would be better suited to play, you know, Little Sisters of the Poor in game 1 and focus on winning the SEC than it would be to schedule quality non-conference opponents, because those games literally, they just don't matter when you have the 4 conference champions getting a bye, no matter where they were ranked in the I mean, really even in the top 25. It's like, shoot, I mean, there is a scenario, right? Like, think about this. There is a scenario. This will never happen, but there is a thought. There is a hypothetical that's like, okay, you could lose all of your non-conference games, run the table in the SEC, and you end up, you know, 8-4 as a 4 seed with a bye.
Yeah, and you're guaranteed in the playoff. You're most likely guaranteed a top 4 with a bye. I think.
Well, how would you not? Because there's only 4 Power 5 conferences.
Technically speaking, and I don't. What conference is Cincinnati in now? Are they still in?
Well, the group of 5. The group of 5 is the highest ranked group of 5 gets in.
They get in, but here's the thing. But in theory, but it's the 4 highest ranked conference champions. So if we were again go back to 2021, Cincinnati was one of the 4 highest ranked conference champions.
Yeah, but is it? Because I thought, well, maybe I missed it then. Because I thought they had like qualifiers on. I thought that's why they included the group of 5, because I thought those conferences were not necessarily included in the.
They are. So it's based. So the way that it's worded is
I see what you're saying.
The way it's worded is the 4 highest ranked conference champions are seeded 1 through 4. Now, presumably, that's going to be the Power 4 conference champions, but technically, it's possible.
You assume.
So if you point to 2021 as an example, Cincinnati would have gotten a bye, and actually Georgia would not have. Right?
Yeah.
Georgia would have been probably 5th, I guess.
Makes sense.
Seeding. So it's possible, but not probable.
I see what you're saying. Yep.
Yeah.
So in that scenario, it is probably not likely if you lost all of your out of conference games that you would be there. But again, it is like, why would you, we can talk about this some other time, but it is like, it's like, why does Kirby Smart care? I mean, he cares about it because it's the next opponent on the schedule, and he cares about it because it is a neutral site, big game, and it's in his DNA to care about winning. But at the end of the day, like, the Clemson game literally does nothing for your football team other than get you some reps against a quality opponent to see where you are. But if you lose that game, like, it literally doesn't matter. Whereas before, if you lost that game, it's like that could come down to whether it's a BCS or whether it's a CFP, like, selection committee. It could actually matter. And now it just doesn't, if assuming you take care of business in your conference. And that's just it's just a very different mental.
I love it. John's coming out like this. The regular season just doesn't matter at all anymore.
I didn't say that. No, I didn't say that. There are 8 games. There are 8 games that matter significantly. There are 4 games that it's like, I don't know. Do they matter? I don't know. You can make the fans can decide, but it's like, if Kirby Smart comes out UMass right late in the season, Kirby Smart comes out and rests everybody and squeaks out a win, and it's an ugly game, an ugly home game versus UMass. Do you care? Like, because at the end of the day, it's like you don't anymore. And before, it would have been like, you need to be peaking at the end of the season because, like, the rankings and the committee and all these things. And now it's like, dude, no, if I'm playing to win the SEC and get that bye, I don't care about the UMass game at all. Like, I'm not going to lose it, but I don't care about running my starters out there and trying to actually make a statement.
I was just about to say, is that the game? Is that the game where you put in all of the freshmen kind of situation?
Yeah, and Kirby has said it. Like, Kirby mentioned it. He talked about it when his interview with Feinbaum this offseason, where he said a lot of coaches are thinking through roster management. They're thinking through, do you rest guys? How do you manage the load? How do you go through the season? He's like, a lot of coaches are thinking through this and dealing with this because people don't. It's just a different dynamic. And he said that in the spring in an interview with Paul Feinbaum at the Regions Golf Tournament. And the light bulb went off for me. It's like, yeah, this dude he's thinking about resting guys. He's thinking about changing his approach. And again, it's like, man, it's just a tough thing when you think about that. When you look at, okay, if the SEC championship game, if you already clinched a spot in the SEC championship game, and now Georgia Tech, I mean, we saw it a little bit last year because guys were just injured, and Kirby was like, obviously like trying to keep Lab McConkey and those guys, like trying to get them back for the SEC championship game. But now it's like, does that game, and again, it will always matter to Kirby Smart. It'll always matter to us as fans. It'll always matter to the team because it's a game on the schedule. But does it really matter? Does Georgia versus Georgia Tech really matter anymore in the grand scheme of winning a national championship? I don't know that it does.
And see, that's like the nightmare scenario for me of why I was anti-expansion. And if Josh Hancher is listening, I know he's rolling his eyes at us right now. But yeah, that's that's what I don't like about it.
The soul-crushing loss is gone.
Soul-crushing loss is gone. I think, the whole argument of like more games matter now or less games matter now, all that kind of thing. I think the counter argument is more games matter for more teams now, because now we've expanded the playoff, and so more teams are playoff teams. So I get that, but it's just fundamentally changes the sport, and I think could change the strategy. And the only thing I'll add there is, like, I agree, like, it matters to Kirby Smart, et cetera, but like, these guys are also like diabolical and like they want to win. And it's not just that they want to win a game, they want to win the championship. And they're going to find ways to help them do that. And cutting, less wear and tear can help that.
Well, let me add one more layer to it, and I know we can move on. What happens when? Well, right now it's already there for coaches. Kirby Smart has incentives built into his contract
I was just
to
about
win
to
the
say it's where the
SEC.
contracts.
To win the SEC, he has incentives built into his contract to win the national championship. He has no incentive built into his contract to beat Georgia Tech. And what happens when those players have incentives in their contract to win an SEC championship, an incentive in their contract to win a national championship, no incentive in their contract to beat Georgia Tech? What happens?
Well,
Anyone
then they'll
NIL
have
listening?
contracts.
What's that, John?
Then they'll have contracts for a number of wins.
Yeah, we need that.
But is your contract going to be? I mean, again, it's like it's all you have agents involved. No agent is going to negotiate a contract to go 12-0. I mean, you know what I mean? It's like why? Like there's no. I mean, maybe.
I mean,
so,
you
but like
could do 10. You could do 10 wins, right?
yeah. So there are two that don't matter. So which two? Georgia Tech doesn't matter. Clemson doesn't matter. Like which two don't matter? And that's the thing. It's like you go down the path. Anytime you say your incentives are built off of championships, your incentives are built all the things that they should be built off of. You have to start. You take some things away because again, no. It's just economics. Like there's no like the athletic department is not going to put in monetary incentives for going 12-0 when Kirby Smart has gone 12-0 3 years in a row. Like it's just economically, it's like, like I mean, the odds of you going 12-0 are pretty high. We're not going to pay you more for that. We'll pay you more for winning the SEC championship that you haven't won very often. Pay you more for winning a national championship that you haven't won very often, because there's no, you don't get a revenue boost in going 12-0. You get a revenue boost in winning championships, and I think economically that's just for me. The expanded playoff, and they're already gonna move to 14. It's like with these things and conference realignment, it all comes down to how are you going to incentivize these guys, and how are you going to do it in a way that they're going to agree to? Because if I'm a player and I'm like, okay, I got to play 17 games. I'm not gonna. I mean, I don't want it in my contract that I got to show up and play in all 17 games. Because so there is that. It's the wear and tear. Everything just changes, and you see this in the NFL. Like the NFL, that's the model they're going to go after. And what the NFL does, I mean, it is. And what the NFL does is there are no incentives. There are no incentives for how many. There may be some incentives for how many snaps you play or whatever, but there are incentives for you hit markers for receiving yards. You hit markers and think about it, guys. Like think about Carson Beck having to go out and play against Georgia Tech, and he's like, "Oh, Dominic Lovett needs 4 catches to hit a monetary incentive." Like, I mean, like that for me is it just changes the entire way that you show up to the game, that you coach the game, that you play the game. I just think I just think it's going to be, but wrap your head around it because it's here. But that being said, I am excited for an expanded playoff in terms of there are some games, especially after you get out of that first round, that it's like, okay, it's really intriguing. Alabama, I saw Brett McMurphy had a horrendous college football playoff prediction where he predicted like Alabama as the 2 seed and Georgia as the 6 seed and all these things. Yeah. But one of the things he had in there was in the second round, he had Alabama playing Ole Miss in his projection, and Alabama and Ole Miss don't play they're not on the schedule this year because of realignment. And so you're like, okay, well, I mean, I'd like to see Lane Kiffin and Kalen DeBoer go at it in the college football playoff game. Like that kind of stuff, when you don't have teams on the schedule anymore, it does get interesting, to take a step back and be like, okay, that's a game I would like to see that I would never have seen in a 14 playoff. 2 SEC teams that hadn't played in the regular season that now get an opportunity to actually go at it when one of them didn't make the SEC championship or whatever. Like that kind of stuff. I do think
I'll use this and maybe we can move on from the talk. But I'm going to throw out a schedule and you guys tell me how you feel about this schedule. You're an SEC team. You're playing Murray State. You've got Buffalo. You've got Boston College. You've got Vanderbilt. You've got Texas A&M. You've got UMass, your favorite team, John. You've got Auburn. You've got Alabama. You play Oklahoma, South Carolina, Mississippi State, and Arkansas.
Hmm.
That is Missouri's schedule.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what I like about that is there are no divisions. So you go out and run the table on that schedule, you're going to get
We could be
You're getting-
playing Missouri in the SEC championship.
yeah, but you're going to get Georgia or Texas or Alabama. Like it's not like you know, it's not like in the division era where it's like, oh, yeah, you know, I mean, again, Georgia's been on the east side of it, so it has felt like you're always going to get Alabama, but it is, you know, at least with that, what I'll also say with that is Missouri runs the table. They lose in the SEC championship game. They end up in the playoff. They're going to, you know, be going to play Ohio State or something. You know, it's like, but last thing I'll say, Georgia plays a real schedule for the first time in history, in program history. Georgia has good teams on the schedule for the first time ever this year. And so I can't knock Missouri's schedule when Georgia literally has not played a real schedule ever in the history of college football. So finally, Georgia's playing a real schedule. I know Missouri's schedule is an easy schedule, but I can't knock them because it took Georgia, you know, however many hundreds of years of playing football before they finally have good teams on the schedule this year.
Yes. Yes. Well said. Well said. I do like that idea of like, maybe you get an Alabama, Ole Miss, or like one of those you haven't played. You could get like a Georgia, Oklahoma, or something. They're not on the schedule. What worries me is like the multi rematch scenarios as well. Like we could see two teams play each other 3 times potentially. I hope we don't see that, but we probably will. At least somewhere.
I definitely like the potential for playing teams in places that you like haven't seen them historically go to.
Well, the opening round home playoff game is cool. Like I like that. But again, you're a top 4 seed. You don't get to experience that.
It's cool unless you're Georgia. Like guys, like Georgia could be hosting like Texas State in a college football playoff game, or Liberty, or you know, like it's,
right.
It's cool unless you end up like the 5 seed and you got
let's say Billy actually makes it through the gauntlet and makes it to the playoff. You could be playing Florida at home.
Oh my god!
in a playoff game.
They're
I'm
going to
just
struggle.
saying, it's a possibility.
I know. Yeah, fair. They're going to struggle to make 500, by the way. But
brutal.
Aside from that, all right. Anything else you guys wanted to hit on before we hop over to listener questions? What else do folks need to be ready for to prep for this new college football that's about to start?
I mean, my biggest thing is be ready to see a lot of people play. Kirby Smart is going to push depth. He's going to I think Georgia already rotates a lot of people, but be ready to see a lot of people play. And also, you know, you talk about like long cons and keeping things, you know, close to the vest and like, I mean, God, I honestly believe, and I hated it. I hated it last year because it wasn't a long con. Because I sat in the rain with Jim beside Jim and watched South Carolina, Georgia almost lose to South Carolina, and that was clearly had nothing to do with like any kind of long con, anything. But be ready for more things to stay, you know, in the bag. Because you might, I mean, you legitimately might end up playing an SEC championship and then playing 3 playoff games to actually try to win this thing. And that's a lot of games that you got to go through as showing teams stuff that they haven't seen before. So that's the one thing I would be ready for.
Yeah.
I think the biggest thing that I'm all the postseason stuff is all going to figure itself out, and it'll just be like, here it is. Here's this beautiful package at the end of the season. Figure it out. The thing that I'll be looking for as the games start to kick off is all the rules changes, like the 2-minute warning and all that kind of jazz. Like that's all going to be new. That's the stuff that like I feel like that there's definitely somebody listening to this that's going to see something happen in the game. And they're going to be like, wait, that's a new thing.
Yeah, the mics and the helmets, I think, is the big one. You know, the way that they communicate plays and get things in from the sidelines. I think that's a big one that we hadn't talked about as well, John. Besides the rules changes, but it's like, yeah, I mean, now offensive coordinator can actually talk to the quarterback, give him the play directly into the helmet. And you know, we are going to lose the guys, you know, doing the, you know, like they're directing like airplane traffic and the freaking killer mic. You know, it's like you got the grid, and it's got like
I think they're still going to be doing that.
It's got like Big Boy from Outkast. It's got like the Oregon Duck. It's got like a Waffle House logo, and it's got like a, you know, a green red light that's like green, and you know, whatever they're doing to like try to distract. We're going to lose a lot of that. They might still be
going to do it.
I mean, but why? If you can,
it's all going to be window dressing.
But window dressing for what? The offense and the defensive coaches can talk to, like, they literally, there's a guy on defense and a guy on offense that has a microphone in their helmet. So, but yeah,
it turns off. It turns off after a certain time, right, Jim?
It does. It does. I don't know. I'm hopeful. I've heard people say that it's not going away. I want the huge banner things that block the view on TV sometimes. I want those to go away because of this. Please. Like, do we have those in the NFL? Because the NFL has the headset, and that doesn't happen. So
no, we don't have those in the NFL. The NFL has headsets. The NFL also has, you know, like I know college football is getting these too, but the tablets and stuff like that. Like, you don't have to. Yeah. There's so much technology. They don't do those things in the NFL. They also don't have four guys there all wearing, you know, red, yellow, like primary colors, like on the sidelines. They're not related to anything any other coach is wearing. It's like, you know, your colors are red and black, and you got a guy wearing green, yellow, blue, and purple, like right there. So yeah, they don't have that in the NFL either. So we'll see what happens.
I will say, JP, what you were saying that something's going to happen and someone's going to freak out. I will say the first time I played college football 25, I flipped out when there was when the clock stopped for the 2-minute warning. I was like, what? Like, what just happened? I was like, I didn't call timeout. Did they call timeout? I was like, 2-minute warning. I forgot. Like, I had forgotten it was happening. So that at least caught me up over the summer. There was also a Reddit thread where someone went off saying that EA Sports was recycling Madden code, and their proof was that they forgot to remove the 2-minute warning. And then someone had to inform them that it's because the 2-minute warning is a new thing in college football of the year. It's pretty funny. So
that is fun.
All right. I guess we have a pretty wide range of listener questions. We can hit those if you guys want to.
There's definitely one thing that could potentially change everything for Georgia fans.
What is that?
Beer sold at the stadium.
Well, this is true. This is true.
There could be a lot more pandemonium.
I mean, like, how I feel like for me personally, like, I don't know how big of a change is going to be for me. Like, I might get like a beer, but I don't know, like a game, because we go to the tailgate. Like, I don't know that I'm like, when I'm going to get to the stadium.
Kim, you heard it here first. Jim's only going to get one beer at the game.
Yeah.
Famous last words.
Yeah. I have this is maybe I shouldn't say this publicly, but I've had this high proof toasted bourbon from ASW. So I'm just going to tell you all I'm going to have a HIPAA violation, but I have a little bit of an allergy to beer, so I can't really drink beer. So it doesn't really tempt me so much. Unless you know, the team is playing poorly, I'm already in pain. I'll just put myself in even more pain. But you let them install one of those like full bars like they have at Mercedes-Benz, and might do some damage there. But the beer, I'll let Jim stick to his one beer, Kim, and drink one for me. So
Lily's going to be trying it, probably not Kim, but. We'll put Lily on that.
Dad, you said you were only going to drink one.
Beer watch.
Well, I had one beer and I had one white.
It's a night game.
Well, there's probably White Claws too. And there's no laws when you're drinking Claws. I don't know. Actually,
wow, I like that. I hadn't heard that before.
I am actually curious what the lineup will be. We'll need to investigate before the first home game. We've got a neutral site. We can do some investigation before the first home game to know those things.
Yeah, need to know because a lot of these schools now have their own beer. So
If only Creature Comforts could get on board.
I do. Well, they are the official craft. They are now the official craft brewery of Georgia.
Feels like they may just be saying that without paying any licensing because it feels like they haven't fully gone like all in.
It's kind of like the Jimmy Dean sausage baseball cards where they didn't have the logos on the players, but they had the baseball cards.
I have always been mad, or not mad, but I guess sad. I felt like there was something missing where you've got like New Belgium has like Old Tuffy because New Belgium is in Colorado and North Carolina, so they do they do an official NC State beer. That's the Old Tuffy. You've got these schools with their official beers. I don't know. They do one for Colorado State too. New Belgium. I can't remember what it's called. I mean, Classic City Lager is the closest thing to it, but that's still not like it's not the Georgia beer.
I do have to.
I know. I hang on. I know you were going to save it, but I did a quick investigation.
Okay.
And the official beer sponsors for Georgia include Dos Equis, Twisted Tea, Creature Comforts, and then other offerings will include Bud Light, Coors Light, and Miller Lite. Domestic beer will be $8 and craft and premium beer for $9. So there you go. It does sound like there is going to be Creature Comforts inside the stadium, but also Twisted Tea and Dos Equis and Bud Light and Coors Light and Miller Lite.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
So no White Claws for Bobby. Sorry, Bobby.
No, it actually says now beer and seltzer will be available for purchase to any fan of drinking age.
Probably the Budweiser seltzers.
Yeah, it'll probably be, my guess is it'll be one of those branded seltzers, which I don't think Bobby, tweet us when you hear this. Do you just exclusively drink White Claws or are there other options? Because I do feel like, I know White Claws are your go-to, but I don't know if what is Luke Bryan's seltzer? It feels like something Bobby would drink. Maybe that's a Bud Light. I mean, South Georgia boys
drink beer. I mean, Hug Dog threw up a picture of PBR the other day.
Ain't nothing wrong with PBR.
Ain't nothing wrong with PBR, that's for sure. Shoot, I forgot what I was gonna say.
That's okay. It's our podcast. You can.
I was gonna say something in relation to all that. I lost it.
Let's hit the listener questions, and it'll come back to you at some point. I will say for 2024, just like last year, the listener questions are brought to you by Working Web Media. So they were nice enough to help us redesign mygodapodcast.com. You should really go dig in and look. There's great photos of us and the photography on mygodapodcast.com. You can head over there, check out our store, got all of our merch. And if you need help with your website or your online presence, head over to workingwebmedia.com/dogs and let them know that we sent you their way. All right. First up.
I remember what it was. I was gonna say like to circle back on the beer stuff. I will say that in relation to the official beer breweries and stuff, New Rome Brewery is dead to me at this point because they make a Georgia Tech. They make a Georgia Tech beer.
Did not know that.
New Rome. Never heard of her.
Yeah.
They make a really good beer called Hazy Like a Fox.
I'm kidding. I actually like New Rome. Yeah, no, I was kidding. I like New Rome. That was my joke. You're dead to me joke. Never heard of her.
I don't. I'm not familiar. See, I'm not as familiar with like the Georgia breweries that you don't get outside of Georgia. So I don't get back enough. All right,
like
this one will be a quick
popular,
one.
but...
This is just an update on this one. So All School wanted to know, what is this year's hype song going to be, and when do we get it? The hype video, at least the first cut, is in the can. John Powell has seen it. I kind of feel like I want to make a few tweaks. So it'll be out this week. I'm not going to spoil the song. All I will say is, All School, you will like it. That's all I'm going to say there.
I've seen it, and it's beautiful.
So coming out this week. By the time you're hearing this, it might be out. We'll see. All right, Brett Building. Brett says, welcome back. Let's keep the two-parter tradition alive. Which shout out Brett. Saw Brett at the beach this summer, so we got to catch up with Brett and his family and enjoy some bourbon. Actually, one evening it was very nice. So he said, if we lose one game this year, which one can we afford to lose the most? John, you answered that already. It's any non-conference game, and including Clemson.
Pick one.
UMass.
UMass.
We can drop UMass. Won't even matter if we win the rest of them. It's fine.
God, that's a beautiful answer. Not that I like the things, but and then he said in the least. And he said, in my humble opinion, it's always clean, old-fashioned hate. So, John, although you now say that's actually not the case, technically, as far as playoff implications, it's not as important.
I honestly think the one that you can afford to least lose, and this is going to be maybe overthinking it a little bit, but I'm going to say I had to pull up the schedule. November the 16th at playing Tennessee in Athens. It's your last conference game of the year. It's the opportunity to really feel, to really be clicking on all cylinders. That one feels like the one that you can least afford to lose for me personally, because you will have gone through the gauntlet of Clemson, at Kentucky, at Alabama, at Texas, Auburn, Mississippi State, at Ole Miss, Florida, And so dropping that game feels like, because it's late in the season, it's a conference game, and Tennessee fans are absolutely crazy on the Twitters. That feels like the game that you can least afford to lose for me. So I'll just throw that out there. That's my reasoning, but honestly, I mean, please don't lose at Alabama. That's the one personally that you can least afford to lose for my own health and well-being. Georgia can least afford to lose at Alabama. The rest of them, I don't know. I could maybe deal with, but that one will hurt me deep.
I mean,
deep
that's
into my soul.
That's the one for me, because you look at the schedule sets up. You got Clemson, Tennessee Tech, Kentucky, and then you got Alabama. That's the one that's going to set the tone, because we're going to be favored by pretty decent margins, I feel like, in the first 3 games there. So I don't know. I just feel like that just for my sanity's sake, for Marler, the Marler pushback, I'd like to have that one go down in the books as the biggest win in Bryant-Denny Stadium history by a visitor.
Yeah. I'll throw an emotional one in there and say Florida, because conference game, but not that I'm worried about them, but that would be bad. I feel like those big road games, I feel like if you lose one of them, I think any of those, that's where I don't put those in there. But that's just my take.
What's the most points scored by an away team at Bryant-Denny Stadium?
That's a great
Let's not
question.
go that far, JP.
I mean, I'm just wondering if there's like a half 100 game in Kirby on this one.
Yeah. Let's see. British Bulldog.
Oh.
British.
Nope, go for it.
Oh,
Sorry.
did you find an answer?
Nope. No, you're good. You're good. Go for it.
So he said, always look forward to this one. Which Georgia player has a breakout year? Who are we looking forward to break out this season?
You want to go first?
I'll let John go first on this one.
Okay.
You're most attuned into. You've actually been to some of the practices.
I have. Yeah, I have. I'll say, for me, I think it's Dominic Lovett. I know that's one that a lot of people are high on, and have mentioned a few times. But I think Dominic Lovett, for a number of reasons, but mostly because this is his second, full year in the program, in the scheme, in the offense. You have the dismissal of Ra Thomas. You have, a lot of talented guys on that wide receiver core, but you lose Ladd McConkey, you lose Marcus Rosemy-Jackson, and Dominic Lovett. He was an all SEC guy. He led the SEC in receiving the year before he transferred to Georgia. I think this is his opportunity now. Obviously, not a breakout year because he had that breakout year at Missouri, but breakout year for Georgia. I'll say on the offensive side of the ball. I'll give you one more on the defensive side of the ball. I do think, and again, this is maybe a little bit of a popular pick too, but Micah Williams. I mean, Nolan Smith said that he referred to Micah Williams as Trayvon Walker Jr. I think Micah Williams, I think, is just a guy who really has to come into his own this year. In the mold of like an Azeez Ojulari, like those guys who just got after the quarterback. And so that's the guy I'm looking for on the defense side of the ball.
Nice. JP, do you have anyone, or do you want me to go?
I'm on the offensive side, given what we saw in the bowl game. I'm looking for Anthony Evans to have a big breakout game or season or whatever. On the defensive side, I mean, Malachi Starks is obviously, preseason All-American. I don't know what breakout season he could potentially have as a preseason All-American, but I just think that he's going to be one of those guys, one of those dudes on the defensive side that we just can't afford to not have on the field.
Yeah, I was going to say Anthony Evans, so I'll have to go somewhere else. I think good. Trevor Etienne is probably cheating, but I am so maybe a dark horse. Branson Robinson, like I know he's recently coming off injury, but there's been a lot of buzz about him, and he looked good as a freshman. So curious to see how he looks out of the backfield.
Do we give you two more easy ones?
Heck yeah.
That we haven't talked about? Arian Smith.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Arian Smith.
Can we please have that Arian Smith breakout season? I would love that.
Wait for it. Arian Smith. I'm telling you, Arian Smith. And then on the defensive side of the ball, I'll also say Julian Humphrey. This is a guy who entered the transfer portal, came back out, and this is a guy, Georgia absolutely needs him with Dalen Everett and Daniel Harris and those guys playing corner. Again, you got a really good secondary, but not a lot of experience. And Julian Humphrey, he's got to be that guy on the corner. But man, I'm telling you, Mike Bobo mentioned a couple weeks ago with Arian Smith, and people took it as like a little bit of the kiss of death because he said he works really hard and he's got to work on his consistency. And that's been his thing, right? Like the whole time. But he's been running with the ones. He's been running in that receiver position with the ones. And from everything I've heard, he is the consistency is coming along. And if the consistency comes along with Carson Beck hitting the deep ball and that guy's speed, look out.
So you talked about a couple of wide receivers, which I'm curious to see. We've mentioned multiple wide receivers in this conversation. Obviously, the offensive line is super deep. Running back room is super deep beyond that, right? And then we've got Carson Beck, preseason Heisman, favorite, right? So who are the receivers? Like you got Dominic Lovett. We mentioned Anthony Evans. You mentioned Arian Smith, but there's a lot of guys that are in that room too. There's not a whole lot of snaps out there, I feel like.
No, well, yeah, but so the starting, if starting means anything with the way that Georgia rotates, but it's going to be Dylan Bell, who we haven't talked about. So it's going to be Dylan Bell, it's going to be Arian Smith, it's going to be Dominic Lovett. Behind them is going to be Anthony Evans. You're going to have London Humphrey and Colby Young, who's the big, 6'5". Yeah. And then you're going to have like these young guys. I mean, I think Sakovi White's going to get some run. I think you got Michael Jackson III, who came from USC, in there as well. London Humphreys, we mentioned earlier, we haven't talked about him again. And so that was a good joke, by the way, Michael Jackson.
That guy's a smooth criminal.
It was perfect. It was perfect.
Sorry. All season, get ready for it.
He can be the man in the middle too.
Oh God. He will be the man in the middle. That's a good one right there. But no, I think this is, this is the reason, not the only reason, but a reason, Georgia hasn't had a 1,000-yard receiver. It has had one in program history. It's like Georgia's always had all these mouths to feed, either whether it's in the backfield or whether it's in the wide receiver group. And so when I say breakout, I don't mean, I don't know that Georgia will have a 1,000-yard receiver. I think Dominic Lovett has the opportunity to be that for sure. But what I will say is like, I don't think there's going to be any problem with these guys eating, assuming they stay healthy. But just going down that list, I mean, I think the guys to watch are definitely Dominic Lovett, Aaron Smith, Dylan Bell, and Anthony Evans, and then from there, it goes pretty deep.
Yeah.
So the offensive side is pretty deep, right? And
Mhm.
we've heard a little bit about it, but what's the depth at quarterback? Is it Gunner? Is it Rashada?
Yeah,
like what?
it's Gunner. No,
I've heard it's Gunner.
It's Gunner, and it has to be Gunner, right? So again, a guy who he knows the terminology. He's had time in the offense. It doesn't mean that Jaden Rashada couldn't be the guy as the season goes on, but it's so hard. I mean, it's so hard for a number of reasons to establish yourself as a quarterback, to dethrone even a QB2 coming into a place like Georgia where I mean, and we'll just say it. I'll just put it on the table. Maybe Georgia fans may or may not like this, but Mike Bobo's dad taught Gunnar Stockton how to throw a football. Like, do you think, like, I mean, like, do you think that kid's not going to get every opportunity? I mean, that's how deep that relationship goes, is like literally George Bobo taught Gunnar Stockton how to throw a football. That family has had a relationship with him and with their family since the kid started playing the game. And so, and he obviously came to Georgia not knowing that, Mike Bobo, like he was actually, that's why people thought he may go to South Carolina, because the Mike Bobo relationship. And so he came to Georgia not knowing Mike Bobo would end up here. But I think it's just hard to dethrone that relationship with with the knowledge of the system in, one spring off season. Now, with that being said, I do think Jaden Rashada, I think if he continues on, I think Jaden Rashada, if he stays at Georgia, continues in the system, learns the system, the terminology, all those things, I think he has potential to be QB1 next year. Because I do think he has that kind of talent. There's a reason that, the whole Florida NIL debacle, but there's a reason they were paying him what they were going to pay him. I mean, the guy is good, and and people can say whatever they want about Arizona State, but like, it's hard to come in as a true freshman to any system and start and play any level of reasonably well. And he did it, at Arizona State, and then ended up, having an injury and whatever. But yeah, I'd keep an eye on him.
Nice. All right, complete pivot on question 2 from British Bulldog. Any dog-related name suggestions for my soon-to-be-born son? I've got one if y'all don't have one.
Munson.
You could go Larry and not have to be quite as...
Munson. It feels like... Yeah, it feels like... what's the Mumford and Sons? Munson and Sons?
There we go.
Feels like it has a good ring to it.
And you could always make Larry the first name and Munson middle name. You could go Larry Munson.
That's true.
We could work in the double. I was actually, that kind of segues into what I was going to say. This could be first name and middle name, but I was going to go with
Robert Beal.
I thought that would be on brand.
Nice. I recommend throwing a champ in there.
There we go.
Yeah. I would say, I don't know. It's a British Bulldog. He's in Scotland though, right? Yeah. I like Samford. You could do, if you want to go like Samford. Just real, who was it? Russell? There's a lot. There's a lot. Let me tell you, I'm not good at telling you what to name your baby, but let's tell you what not to name your baby. So anything like Dooley, don't name a kid Dooley. Don't name a kid, Athens, any,
right.
And nothing that's like right on the nose. Right. Kirby,
Arch.
Don't name your kid Kirby. Yeah. Arch. Don't name your kid Kirby. Don't name your kid Reed or Baxter or Morris. I'm just naming like all the dorms, like just
right.
Brumby.
Brumby.
Okay, so we got some
Name your
things
kid. Name your kid. Here's what you do, British Bulldog. Name your kid Butts Mere. Perfect. After the UGA athletic building, after the UGA football building, Butts Mere, and your kid will be set for life. That's the name.
I don't know. I'm kind of partial to Gumbies.
Gumbies was started in Florida though. But
Guthrie. Name your kid Guthrie.
yeah, Guthrie.
There you
Guthrie. There you go. All right, so we gave some recommendations and also some things to steer clear of. So you have to keep us posted on the progress there.
Uptown Lounge.
Yeah. All right, the Hug Dog, Jason Huggins, says, "Hell yeah, let's roll. Do you purposefully slow your pregame roll, i.e., alcohol consumption, for a noon kickoff, so as to crank it slow and low all day and night, or do you hit the gas at 8 a.m. and hope to not pass out before 3:30 kickoff times?" As an adult now, or as a college student?
I know, right?
I'll tell you, Hug Dog. I'm gonna give you my advice. Okay, the noon kickoff. I know you're probably talking about noon kickoffs in general. I'm gonna talk about the noon kickoff for Clemson specifically. It is the first game of the year. No one cares what is happening after that game is over. You should not care. You should be there in the blue lot with us tailgating 7:30, cracking cold ones, going to see, we are going to test our training. We're going to test our reps. We're going to see where we are. And you can't, the way you see where you are, when you go and you do a personal record, when you do a PR, right? It's a max lift. It's trying to beat a time and a run. So we're going to see how hard we can go. We're going to see where we are, the high water mark. That's what's going to happen before the noon kickoff for Clemson. Now, if it's noon, if it's noon for Tennessee Tech or something, like, I mean,
UMass,
you got to make, UMass. If it's noon for UMass, we got to make some business decisions because, but for Clemson, phew, all gas, no brakes, baby.
All gas, no brakes. Yeah.
Start at 7:30, and we're gonna find out. Yeah, and by around 11:45, we're gonna see where we are. That's what's gonna happen. That's what's gonna happen for Clemson.
Beautiful. Yeah, that sounds about right.
I mean, that's a great answer. All gas, no brakes.
I have nothing to add.
All gas, no brakes, baby.
All right. Friend of the show, Tim Riley.
Motto.
Season motto. Tim Riley, welcome back, boys. Gonna be a fun season. What games do you plan on attending? I mean, all of them. No,
the games you don't.
Yeah,
what UMass. Games? Probably not going to UMass. No.
Honestly, probably not. I would plan to be at Clemson. What is it? What's the Tennessee Tech? It's a tech, not a directional school, right?
Right.
Yeah, Tennessee Tech.
I don't know that I'll be at that game because that's like right after we're moving Ella into college. But otherwise, hope to be at the home games. So
Tennessee Tech is a 2:00 kickoff, so that's perfect. Actually, Hug Dog, like that's a 2:00. I mean, perfect.
It's a perfect game to assess things.
It is, yeah.
Oh man,
get an extra hour to see where you are.
That's true. That is going to be a weird one.
I don't know. I'm going to earmark. I'm going to earmark some of the earlier games because Carter's baseball schedule doesn't really like kick into overdrive until October. So I'm going to be TBD on most of these until I figure that out.
Makes sense.
And we got volleyball schedules, which I haven't even seen. So
all the kids' sports.
Yeah.
Tim also wants to know: will our dogs have a player achieve 10+ sacks this year, and if so, who? We talked in our last episode with Roddy about like that we just really haven't had that edge rusher sack guy since Adam Anderson, and who will be that guy? So I don't know. I keep wanting Jalen Walker to be that guy, but he's kind of a hybrid guy. But I don't know. He's my best guess.
I was saving questions about what John's seen from the defensive line for this question. Like what are you seeing, John?
Yeah, I mean it's just hard. It's hard from Mykel Williams is the guy who Mykel Williams is going to get a lot of pressures, but maybe not a lot of sacks because of the position, the way that Georgia plays him in that position. So the best bet but Kirby, I mean, the way Kirby's talked about him has just been odd, to be honest. The best bet is Jalen Walker, but Kirby has talked about him as like a hybrid player, and like they're trying to, he's basically like trying to learn like two positions, and but I think that's probably Georgia's best bet at some type of pass rusher like that this year, because he'll be a guy that they'll probably put him in more in like pure pass rush sets. Georgia just rotates so many guys; it's just hard. But I would say Jalen Walker. It's just hard to get that number of sacks because of the way that they rotate so much now. But I would say Micah Williams or Jalen Walker. I wouldn't sleep on, and again, I wouldn't sleep on a guy like that star position, a guy like Jonel Aguero, like a guy that just really comes in. Again, a star is more of like a hybrid, it's kind of like a linebacker corner, so you can be in coverage a lot. But they like to send. If you saw last year in 2022. What Georgia did with Javon Bullard coming off the edge against Tennessee, where they just kept sending them, and he just kept like hammering Hendon Hooker. I can see a guy like Jonel Aguero coming off as a star, coming off that edge, just like on those star, kind of safety blitzes, just over and over and over, and racking up some sacks. But if I'm betting, it's gonna be Jalen Walker. I would say Smile Monday might be a dark horse. They'll move him around a little bit too, but Jalen Walker and Micah Williams.
I was wondering because Aguero was a name that we heard before last season, but didn't he get hurt or something like that, and didn't really have too much of a factor?
Well, he had two issues. One, he was banged up a little bit, and two, he was playing behind Javon Bullard. I mean, what you can do? Like, you got Javon Bullard and Tyke Smith that you're playing behind. It's like, I mean, it's there's that too. But this year, you do have like you have last year you had Javon Bullard and Tyke Smith. This year you don't have those guys, so you've got guys like Jonel Aguero. You've got guys like, I would even say, we talked a little bit about Smile Monday, but I would say like, his name escapes me now. Ja'Cory Thomas is another guy that will probably get a good bit of run. He's a junior, been around for a while. He'll probably get a good bit of run at those positions too. But yeah, no, I just look, I'm like, dude, like, people wanted, because Jonel Aguero was so highly recruited. People were wondering, and he was banged up, so there is that for sure. But people were wondering, like, well, why this highly recruited kid, like, why didn't he get, as much playing time? I'm like, he was playing behind Javon Bullard and Tyke Smith. Like, where are you going to put him? So I think he'll have plenty of opportunity this year.
I'm going to miss those two. And especially since like late in the season, they were like toying with my emotions, like talking back and forth on social media, like they were going to come back and like really mess with my head. But, and having just made the highlight video that All School is asking about, one thing that I do when putting those together is I don't use any highlights of players who are gone. It's all, every play you see, the focal point of that play is someone who's coming back.
Are you going to be able to have enough players this year?
Had to cut a lot of Tyke Smith and Javon Bullard and Brock Bowers. I will say, wasn't quite as hard as making last year's video, where I had to like find like Stetson, or I had to not have Stetson, basically. So like any of the passes, I would show the receiver catching it, but not Stetson throwing it. Because I'm weird, and like that's how I make those videos. And I had to like find like when did Carson Beck throw a touchdown pass? So it made it easier from that perspective. But yeah, I had to cut a lot of. There's a lot of great plays last season that I wasn't able to use in that. But try to get us excited about who's going to be on the field. Anyways, a little behind the scenes there. All right, Trent Thacker, he said, we'll have new SEC intro music after moving away from CBS. How harsh is the reaction to the new music going to be from SEC fans? Should Twitter or X add more servers? Whatever, even if it's good, people aren't going to like it. I will say that.
Yeah.
So we've heard a song. I don't know have you guys seen that? It's to me, I don't think this is the anthem.
They had to release a statement saying it wasn't, because the backlash was so harsh that the ABC's PR team the ABC PR team released a statement that was like this was what you mentioned, Jim, an anthem or something. Like it's
Yeah.
not the actual theme song for the show.
Yeah,
Because
okay.
people were like, "What in the world?" Because it was
It's
was it
Quavo.
like Jelly? Oh, it's Quavo. I thought it was like Jelly Roll or something. I was
No, I
It's
thought,
way off.
Jelly Roll. I thought I saw something with Jelly Roll.
Well, I saw one. It's Quavo, and it's like he sampled Lenny Kravitz. And
Oh
then
yeah,
turned
that's
into
what
a
it
rap
was.
song.
I want to get it. Yeah, that was
Yeah.
the one that they came out and said they released a statement saying this is not the actual theme song because
Okay.
the backlash was so harsh. Because people thought it was the theme song.
Right.
But to be fair, I will say, like, I do think I think the backlash should be pretty harsh if it's like a sample, like a remake of an actual like pop song from rock song from the 90s or whatever.
Yeah.
But did y'all see? So the whole, this is a side note, a little bit of a left turn, but the whole NBA on TNT, right? So NBC like basically stole that contract out from under TNT.
Yeah.
And so the NBA on NBC is like coming back. And that was like what we grew up, probably depending on your age in the 90s, like watching. Well, they're going to use the John Tesh like theme song from the 90s for their NBA on NBC. So what I will say,
such a good song.
So what I will say, that gives me a little bit of hope that I'm like, is there a song, like, is there like a theme song from college football, like back in the day that ABC owns or ESPN owns somewhere that we've forgotten about that they're going to come and like bring back? Because NBC is getting such a positive reception of like that, using that theme music that they used forever ago with their reboot of NBA on NBC. So that could be something I'm hopeful for, but to be honest, it'll probably be something garbage and people will be mad about it. I'll be mad about it. Everyone will be mad about it. It's gonna be like some, it'll probably be like some kid like made it using a computer, and I'll be like, this is not music because you're not playing instruments, like the whole thing. It's just gonna be that's where my head is. So anything, if it's not that, I'll probably be pleasantly surprised and at least a little bit more receptive.
Yeah. People are going to be angry regardless. But I am glad you brought up the NBC. The NBA on NBC.
People on the internet are going to be unnecessarily upset about something.
Shocking.
I'm shocked.
You heard it here first, people.
I'm shocked.
But yeah, when NBC announced, like, when the negotiations were through or whatever, and they announced that I know at least like their tweet, like NBA on NBC is back, and that they had a video with the old theme song. It was fantastic. All right. Trent had a question about Clemson. We're going to table that for next week. Bubby also had a Clemson question we're going to table. We'll get back to those. Let's see.
John had a Clemson question. We talked about that.
I forgot to bring up, we had another uniform question we should have brought up when Hunter was here. This was John Michael D. We had some clarifying questions on this one, I think, during some Twitter back and forth. But he said, should the Power G match the jerseys? And why is your answer yes? So I think he was saying like the color of the Power G matches the color of the jersey, which I actually think, I'm actually an all black Power G guy. I kind of like only like the black Power G personally. So I'm going to say no.
So like red jersey, red Power G.
I think that's what he's saying. That's how I read it, or how I read it.
No. That should absolutely not. It should be black Power G. And
I feel like that was an internal monologue. John was like, "How do I say this polite?"
Well, I was trying to have a softer landing, but this bourbon has been very good. So the answer is absolutely not. John, I love you. No dogs, absolutely not. Black Power.
Yeah, I even like when I see like the pictures when there was a red Power G at the 50-yard line, it still is weird to me that was ever.
Can I tell you though? Can I say this? I would like to have some type of a throwback field at some point, like whether it's the block lettering in the end zones. It doesn't have to be the red Power G, but like I think. I would like to see that's something that hasn't been explored. And now that you have, like Tennessee putting a gas station logo on their field, I feel like it opens up the door to actually do something a little bit creative.
You want like a mud pit or something? Like where you
No, no, I just want
you want
like
a
block,
goat? You want a
like
goat in the end zone? Like
no,
what are you looking
block
for?
lettering.
No more
Maybe
bulldog bold.
maybe the block G, maybe a standing dog at the 50-yard line. Come on, we
Okay.
can.
I wouldn't be opposed to like homecoming.
I feel
I
like we've
go off the rails
I feel like we've seen the standing dog on the sideline. Haven't
on
we
the
seen
field
standing
somewhere.
dog
Like
painted on the field?
I don't think so.
Hmm.
Not that I can
Maybe
think
I'm
of.
making it up.
I think you are, but that's okay. Yeah, I could go for a block G at midfield for homecoming, which is Auburn, by the way, this year. Side note, but yeah.
Sounds like a beautiful time for a black jersey throwback.
Let's see. Onyx 6, Onyx Actual. We talked about this a bit. He said, "What's the outlook on the defensive line this season? And are we confident they can get some much needed pressure?" So I think we talked a bit about the pressure.
Yeah. Yeah.
My question has been, do we have that like person who can soak up double teams in the middle that we haven't had as much either? But
No, that answer is no right now.
yeah.
No,
So-
that answer is absolutely not. It needs to be Nazir Stackhouse or Jamal Jarrett or maybe
Yes,
maybe
Stackhouse.
maybe I don't know, maybe Xavier McLeod could do that, the transfer from South Carolina, but like it definitely needs to be Stackhouse or Jarrett in the middle, but we don't have it right now.
Yeah. Let's see. Aaron King, when you guys are tailgating on campus, where can we come say hi?
Morris Hall,
Morris Hall.
Tate
Correct.
Center,
Come find us. Well, not Tate Center.
Not the Tate
Well,
Center, not the Tate Center.
Tate Center-ish.
Tate Center-ish.
TBD.
No.
Yeah.
TBD. It's not the
TBD.
Tate Center.
Yeah. Morris Hall. Well, come by and find us at Morris Hall. And then second, he said, "What does it take to be called a friend of the show? I'd even settle for loose acquaintance." I will say, Aaron has been around asking us questions for years. So the funny thing is, I was trying to think back when I read this of like when we ever started saying that at all. And I said earlier, friend of the show, Tim Riley, like Tim's a fraternity brother of John and I's. It was my roommate at one point in college. So like, and Tim was the first person who ever sent us a question. So he was instantly like, friend of the show, Tim Riley is what I said on like our third episode. So that's where that all kind of started. So I would say, I don't think there are hard and fast rules. Aaron, I mean, loose acquaintance for sure. Obviously, I feel like we've gone beyond that.
Yeah, for sure. I would say sharing a beverage, talking about the podcast, you're a friend of the show.
Yes. Amazing. So, friend, that now we have answered friend of the show, Aaron King's question. I love this one. Irked Russell, what do you think Georgia's record will be this year, and why is it 7-5?
Well, it's an easy answer.
John's been confirming Georgia 7-5 here this week.
No, this is an easy answer. It's an easy answer. Georgia plays good teams for the first time in program history.
Yes.
Georgia has never played a real schedule. They've never played any good teams.
Never.
In over 100 years of playing football, this is the first time that Georgia has good teams on the schedule. So 7-5 incoming. Just wrap your head around it. 7-5 with losses at Alabama, at Texas, at Ole Miss, versus Georgia Tech, and versus UMass. So just 7-5. just deal with it, because Georgia plays good teams for the first time ever. I don't know if you've heard. Georgia finally has a schedule. Just ask a Tennessee fan. Georgia finally plays good teams. And Tennessee, what I love about that is Tennessee has been on the schedule for decades. And Tennessee fans are the loudest ones saying, you finally play a real schedule. You have been on the schedule for decades. Tennessee and Florida fans are the ones who are chirping the loudest about Georgia finally playing a good schedule. And I'm like, y'all are the two that have been on the schedule. So it's your own fault if it hasn't been a good schedule.
That's right. That's
seriously.
right.
Be better.
Yeah. That's why our schedule was so much harder in the 90s, because they were good back then.
Yeah. Get good again. We're waiting. We've been waiting.
Yeah.
Come on.
No, I'm fine with them not being good.
Well, no. Please don't get good. Get good some other year. Not this year. The schedule's pretty
Yeah,
tough.
literally, just stay terrible.
Yeah, the schedule's pretty tough this year. Not gonna lie. So please, don't get good this year.
Yeah, don't do this year. We got a couple that I don't know that this is borderline Munsoning, but we'll see. So Chad Jarvis, which I will say, Chad has been hosting a Wednesday night Twitter space with our friend
So
Dog
good.
Stats, Josh Hancher. So go check that out. It's a good time. Been able to join, and there's really good conversation, and they're interactive, and you can ask questions. It's a lot of fun. So go check that out for sure. Chad says, "What worries you the most about the upcoming season?" I mean, I guess like Georgia specifically, because what worries me the most is that you're changing my sport. Get off my lawn.
Amazing.
For Georgia specifically, though, I guess like I'm back to this. Like, are we overthinking some things too? Because like we spend so much time like talking about the offense and everything, and I do wonder like, are we overthinking things? Like in 2021, for example, we were like, oh, the Georgia offense, it's going to be blah, blah. And then like, it's like the greatest defense ever. So I am curious there. I don't know, like not a ton of things stand out to me that I'm super worried about. I guess I would say we've got a younger secondary than we've had. So I could throw that out there maybe.
The defensive line is what bothers me the most.
Well, we've graduated from the offensive line, JP, and it's not Stacey Searles.
Well, I obviously, let's not get too crazy. I obviously reserve the right to criticize my friend Stacy.
Okay.
But the biggest question mark on this team on this team right now is the defensive line, in my opinion. Like, just period, end of story. Like, the success of our secondary, the success of our defense is going to rely on how good we are along the trenches, along the defensive front. And frankly, like, depending on how well we play against these higher caliber teams this season is going to dictate what our schedule, what our record is going to be by the end of the season. Because, if they're cutting through you like a hot knife through butter, that puts a lot of pressure on Bobo and back to manufacture points on the other side of the ball. So you have to basically play perfect. You have to play high octane. You have to outscore the other team. And I'm not saying that we can't do that, but I'm just saying that I'd rather not do that.
Yeah.
I mean, what worries me the most is just Kirby overthinking all these changes in this schedule. And, I mean, coaches have the tendency to do that, especially ones who want to win so badly as Kirby Smart. And when you look at games like Alabama, where you have a bye week before going to Alabama also has a bye week, and it's Kalen DeBoer's first ever game as a SEC head coach, and it's at Alabama. It's like, those are the types of games that it just feels like maybe, you can have the tendency as a coach, and I'm not saying Kirby Smart will have this tendency, but you can have the tendency to overthink the preparation when you have 2 weeks to prepare for like the first game post Nick Saban, and and I think for me, I just hope this coaching staff, I feel like last year we saw a little bit of that, and it was a different reason. We saw it because Carson Beck was his first year as a starting QB, and so we saw versus South Carolina, you're throwing a lot of balls behind the line of scrimmage, a lot of screen game early in the season. You saw it at Auburn, and and I know what they were trying to do, right? You're trying to ease in a first year starting quarterback into a complex offense, and all those things, but that's what worries me the most. Just is the coaching staff with looking at this gauntlet of a 12-team playoff, extra games on the schedule, different conference realignment, going to Alabama, going to Texas, going to Ole Miss. Are you going to start overthinking your preparation and really, kind of what's made you successful for the last number of years? And hopefully that doesn't happen. So
That's a good one.
That is a good one. I didn't realize that we were their first SEC game.
Kalen DeBoer's first game, SEC game as a head coach at Alabama is Georgia. So welcome to the SEC, Caleb.
Welcome to the SEC. Congratulations.
Congratulations. You get Georgia off a bye week. Good luck.
Man.
Godspeed.
Yeah, and you got Alabama's got to go to Wisconsin. I didn't even realize that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, he'll be used to that. That's where, he likes the cooler weather.
Let's see, the other Munson type question. Justin Gilland said, Kirby mentions lack of depth. It has to be stressed. Is this coach speak, or are we not deep? I think we're not as. I think you're never going to be as deep as Kirby wants you to be. And I think what was the thing he talked about? Like, what was his comment around, like, the kids aren't coming in as ready as they used to, that kind of thing, like college football changing? Yeah. Was it more? I feel like it was around that.
So almost. He talked about, so what Kirby said was, he said he didn't know. He said this is less depth than he's used to having. And he didn't know if that was because of the transfer portal or if it was more what he refers to as the deterioration of college football.
Yes.
Which, when he refers to that, he means fewer players playing it at the high school level, playing football, and the high school practice schedule in the season, the way that they've done it to protect kids, has led to less development time. You can't have as much time practicing, as much time in the weight room, as much time, all those things that you used to be able to do, two-a-days and all those things. And that's what he was referring to. And I think people miss the end of his comment, though, where he said it's less he said, I don't know that it's, he said, we have good players, but there's less, consistency from year to year, and less guys coming in like ready to play from the high school level. But then he said, his last comment of that answer, he said, but we have a lot more depth than a lot of other people out there. I know that. And that was the way he ended that question. And I think everybody just heard the first part, but he said, we have a lot more depth. And so I do think there is some coach speak to there. But what I will say also is, like, I think what he's talking about is, we talked about in the wide receiver group, right? Like, when you look and you're like, okay, well, you got Dominic Lovett, Arian Smith, Dylan Bell, and Anthony Evans, right? But that's really it. Like, you've got London Humphreys, Colby Young, Michael Jackson, who came from the transfer portal, and you've got Nitro Tuggle, Sokovie White. Like, you don't have a lot of guys who have been in the system, who have got playing time. And the defensive side of the ball is probably what he was talking about more than anything, because that's where his head is. And when you look at, like, the safety position, you got Malachi Starks there, but then you've got, it's like Malachi Starks, Dan Jackson, but then David Daniel Sisava is gone.
Yeah.
So you got Jake Pope, you got KJ Bolden, maybe. You got, like, I mean, I think that's what he's talking about more. Ja'Cory Thomas, Justin Rhett, some of those guys, but not guys who have played a lot. And so I think it's a combination of both, but just don't miss the part at the end when he said, we got a lot more depth than a lot of other people out there. I know that. That was the way he ended that answer.
I was going to say, like, how can you say that as you've had how many number 1, number 2, number 3 recruiting classes?
Yeah,
you've strung together here. Like, you've got the best recruiting clip here that has definitely ever existed at the University of Georgia.
Yeah, but when you go down that list, I mean, that's recruits. That's what recruiting services have ranked those guys. And when they get to Georgia, then Kirby and staff takes a step back and be like, all right, well, who's ready to play? Who can learn the system quickly? Who has the physical development? All those things. Like, it is different from, we brought in a lot of good players, and I think that's what he's trying to say is, like, it's different than we brought in a lot of good players and we have a lot of good players that have experience and are ready to play. And I think that piece of it is probably what he's struggling with more. But also, we saw it last year, and it bit Georgia in the SEC championship game with those true freshman linebackers, right? When you had Raylan Wilson and C.J. Allen fighting for their life against Jalen Milroe running around out there, because they were true freshman linebackers that just got pushed, into starting roles when Smile Munden and Jamon Dumas Johnson got hurt. And I think that's probably what he's seeing a lot of too, where it is like, I mean, but those guys were ready. I mean, they were ready. They just didn't. It's the speed of the game. It's like, they just needed experience, but they played. I mean, for true freshmen, they played pretty good. So I do think there's a little bit of that with Kirby where it is like, yeah, you say that, but I watched CJ Allen out there making plays. Like I watched the kid could play. Like he obviously had to grow up. Like he's a true freshman, but he wasn't. I mean, you're not putting slouches out there even when you run those true freshmen out there.
Right.
Yeah, for sure. Let's see. Matthew Key, I think we hit on his second one, but his first one was around running back. Is it going to be Etienne as RB1 or will someone else emerge? Based on my playing college football 25 EA Sports, it's going to be Etienne. He's really good on there. And I just in general, I think he's the guy to me.
I mean, that's the feedback that I've seen and heard, and I'm curious to see what Mr. Practice has to say. No, we haven't had a back like him in how long?
Dude, Trevor Etienne is the truth. Like this guy is good, but I will say, again, and I hate to keep saying this, but I do feel like I need to harp on it just a little bit. There is no like RB1 like doesn't matter. T1 doesn't matter. Wide receiver 1 doesn't matter. Like Georgia's going to play 3 running backs. Like if they can, they will play 3, right? So that's the goal. That's where you saw Sony Michel, Nick Chubb, DeAndre Swift. You saw Zamir White, James Cook, Kendall Milton. Like you've seen that. And as long as the room is healthy, they're going to play 3 guys. Yeah. But what I will say is the guys to keep an eye on. Roderick Robinson is a little banged up, but if he can stay healthy, it is going to be Trevor Etienne, Branson Robinson, Roderick Robinson would be your 3, and then Nate Frazier is going to play. He's going to get in there, and Nate Frazier may be the one to unseat whoever is an RB3. So whether that's Roderick Robinson, maybe Branson, but Trevor Etienne is. I mean, he's the guy. What was missing last year? Not to get off on a whole other tangent, but what was missing last year was thrown to the running backs, right? Like you
missed
had
James Cook.
Yeah, you missed a James Cook, you missed a Kenny McIntosh, you missed like that type of player on last year's team, and that's what Trevor Etienne and Nate Frazier, who's a true freshman, a summer enrollee, but that's what Trevor Etienne brings is a guy who he's physical, he can run it, but he can also catch it. And Jim and I talked about this a little bit, and we've talked about it in our text thread as well. But like missing that was a key component of Todd Monken's offense that Mike Bobo was missing 2 things last year. He was missing the ability, like a running back that you could actually throw it to, like the ability to have that kind of run that throw game to a running back, because it wasn't Dejon Edwards wasn't that guy, Kendall Milton wasn't that guy, and he was missing a freaking tight end that could also play an inline tackle like Darnell Washington. I mean, people just have no idea what Todd Monken was working with in 2022 with Darnell Washington, being able to line up a guy and you have an extra tackle on the end of the line of scrimmage to block for to turn around and block for Kenny McIntosh. It's like
who's also going to potentially go out and hurdle people.
Yeah, I mean, who also Kenny McIntosh, who also caught had over 500 yards receiving from a running back position, right? So it's like, I just think people, again, not to harp on it, but it's like, man, Mike Bobo, he was missing a Darnell Washington type tight end. He was missing a running back that was catching 500 yards and 4 TDs out of the backfield. And I think this year you'll never have the Darnell Washington thing again, but what you will have is that running back component. And then I do think you also have, I think you also have the tight end room. I think with Ben Urasek, with Oscar Delp, with even that Jaden Reddle kid, these are guys that I think they're probably I'm not gonna say better blockers than Brock Bowers, but the guys that can block. But I mean, last year, Dejon Edwards was the leading receiver from the running back position, and he had 197 receiving yards.
Yeah,
Kenny
that-
McIntosh had
That's crazy. If
505.
you had told me that, I would not have believed you at that.
Kenny McIntosh had 505 in 2022, and Dejon Edwards had 197. Like Georgia did not throw it to the running back position last year.
That's crazy.
Yeah, and that was the key component because even in 2021, again, we don't have to go down this path too far, but James Cook had almost 400 yards receiving in 2021, and 2021 wasn't like a huge explosive like offensive explosion type year that 2022 was. So
True.
mm-hmm.
I mean, there's nothing wrong with talking about that and saying, "Hey, remember the time we went back to back?" Nothing wrong with that.
Hey, and when Michigan's title gets vacated, then it's gonna be a three-peat for the history books.
Yes, I'm fully on board with that.
Repeat season, engage.
That's right. Engage. All right, that wraps it up for the listener questions that don't have a theme song. But we have one more segment. And you know what? That's what we decided. Look, the CBS can take the theme song away from our TVs, but they can't take it away from our podcast.
No, they cannot. We'll use that'll.
Oh my God! My God, a freshman. Trying to put glasses on it.
All right, it is time for Coach Trillbill's preseason over-unders. I will say last season at a game, I asked Coach, we talked about the fact that CBS was going away, and so did he need a new song? And he said absolutely not. So it was a coach's choice.
FTMF.
Coach's decision. All right. And John, you are welcome to answer these as well. Coaches over-unders. We've got 4 offense, 4 defense, a special teams, and a miscellaneous. As the winner of last year's, I will go first. I guess I'll just say that doesn't matter. I'll go first. All right. Over-under offense, team passing yards. Over-under 4,750 yards for the season. I'm going to kick us off with an under.
Ooh, under. Yeah, that sounds like a pretty good. Yeah, I'm going to go under. It's pretty aggressive.
Under. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm going to go over.
Nice.
I'm going to go over.
Nice.
Yeah, I think Georgia. They got. Yeah, I'll go over. I think the extra playoff game. I'm like trying to think about how many games they're going to play.
That's a fair point.
I also think the other part of me is I do think that Georgia is going to push the envelope with backup QBs and throw it more because they need to like get that development in case anything happens longer in the season. So I'm gonna go over.
God, should note to self: talk through these things with John before next time.
Note to self: factor in the couple of extra games.
All right, next up, over under rushing yards for the season, 3,000. So that we're not cheating. JP, you go first, then I'll go, and then John.
I'm gonna go under.
Okay, I wrote these down, so I'm going to go under. I'm sticking to my guns. John, are we done?
No, I'm gonna go under 3,000 rushing. That's a lot of rushing yards.
It's a lot.
It's a lot of rushing yards.
All right, over under total touchdowns scored 70. I'm going to go over.
Over. Let's see here. I'm gonna go over.
Over. Okay.
70.
Yeah.
I'll go over. Georgia had yeah, I'll definitely go over.
Yeah.
Georgia had 71 last year, 76 in 2022. Yeah, we're going over.
Then let's see. Touchdowns by a wide receiver. Over under 25.
I believe that's to you, Jim.
Is it my turn again? Okay, I'm going to go under, actually.
I'll go under as well.
Is this total touchdowns? Like
By
by
wide
all wide
receiver.
receivers?
Yeah, and I may be skewing things because we didn't come close to this last year, but we also had Brock Bowers.
Yeah, but
Although,
I think that's
things I didn't factor in are Dylan Bell throwing touchdown passes.
yeah. I think yeah.
Clarifying question.
I'm gonna go under 2, but that's because I think Georgia has this tendency to, throw to the wide receiver all the way down the field and then hand it off for like a 3-yard touchdown. So
Yes, absolutely.
I think I'm gonna go under.
Agreed. All right, to the defense, over under. So this is allowed. Over under 175 yards per game passing allowed by the defense. So JP, I think this is to you.
It's to me.
Well, didn't I go first last time?
Yes. That was me questioning because I'm thinking. I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go over. I hate it, but I'm gonna go over.
I'm going to go over too.
Yeah, I'm gonna go over. I think again, I think it'll be trying to get depth, maybe games that are a little out of reach, and other teams trying to catch up. I think,
True. Let's see, JP. Oh, no, to me. Okay, over under 115 yards rushing per game allowed. I'm questioning myself, but I wrote down under, so I'm going to say under.
I'm gonna go. Wait, hold on. I got to do a push. I'm just kidding. I'll do under.
Exactly 115 yards average per game.
I'll do under.
Okay.
yeah. I'll definitely go under here. I think they're going to correlate. Like I think Georgia will allow more passing yards because I think they're going to be really, really good against the run this year.
Okay. Let's see. Forced turnovers over under 19. I'm going to say over.
19.
Mm-hmm.
You said over.
Yeah, I did.
I'll just go over just to hedge my bets here.
I'll go over. I'll go over with this one. Yeah.
And then sacks over under 35 sacks.
35 sacks. This seems like a lot. I'm gonna go under.
Yeah, I'm going under as well.
Ooh, boys.
As much as-
I'm gonna go over for this one. I think Glenn Schumann. I think he's gonna put so much emphasis on getting after the quarterback. I'm actually gonna go over.
I like that. I like to say. I like to hope that I'm wrong on this.
I hope I'm real wrong.
Also, with the more games played in there too, because we had 30 last year. More games definitely could get there. So this is, I think, is my favorite over under question for special teams. Over under punts returned for the season 2.5.
I'm gonna go 0.
Yeah, I'm going under. I'm smashing the under, considering there were 0 punts returned last season.
Smash the under.
Yeah, man, I'm gonna go under, which is ridiculous. But I'm gonna go under.
How long can Brett Thorson keep the streak alive of
Man,
0 punts returned?
I want to know how long he can go without being a national story for this number.
Yeah, seriously. I mean, I remember looking at the stat database that we used last year. I didn't see anyone else like that. I saw something said like there were multiple, but I didn't see anyone else. So
Nobody at this level.
Yeah, that's wild.
Yeah.
Miscellaneous over under 500,000 beer sales at Sanford Stadium. And somebody asked him a clarifying question. I think it was Brett Belding.
Yeah. I appreciate the clarifying questions before the episodes.
And I already forgot what the answer was. It was $500,000.
Dollars is what he said.
I just said slam the over. I don't.
Slam the over.
500,000. Is that like one game, or is that like? I mean, what are we talking about?
Yeah,
because
I love the clarifying question from the guest.
Yeah, because that's 55,000 beers at $9 a pop.
I would say also now that we know how expensive they are.
Yeah, I mean, if it's $500,000, I mean, we might hit that game one.
Amazing.
Yeah,
we might. I am interested to see those stats.
Do you think they'll publish them?
I don't know. It's a public. Well, yeah, I don't know. I say public institution, but I don't know that they will.
You think they're going to publish the beer sales? I think. Well, here's what I will say: is I do think that they will break it out in. I think they'll have to break it out in like revenue, right? Like don't they break out like concessions? I mean, maybe they don't break out beer sales specifically, but I think
alcohol sales.
I think we could just do the math. We could be like, oh, what did we sell last year?
Yeah,
how much more? And so beer came out to about this. So.
Yeah, agreed. All right, that's it for the over-unders. Appreciate you, Coach, for saying those and now tracking them for us. Always a good time. All right, that's
Amazing.
that's what we had. Usually like we'll do like make your playoff picks, but there's like 12 teams.
Just
Like I just
save
don't.
it.
I don't even
Just
like feel
save
like
it.
doing. Like that's a lot.
Just
That's
save
a lot of
it.
stuff.
Just save it. We don't even know. I mean, let's be honest. Like after you get past the first like 3 or 4, I mean, like, is it? It could be Penn State. It could be Michigan. It could be LSU. It could be Mizzou. It could be. I mean, you just go down the list. It's like, I mean, because you know how a season goes with injuries and all those things. Like,
Yeah.
I think a
could-
12 team. Yeah, I
I
think
think
12
that we
team
could.
playoff is.
I think that we
fun.
could more accurately guess the top 4 coaches that are going to get fired before the end of the season than we could the 12-team
There you go.
playoff.
There you go.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Especially
because
because I mean some random, it's like freaking Texas Tech is gonna jump up and win the Big 12 without Texas and Oklahoma or something weird anyway. Some
Yeah.
rando.
Yeah,
Gonna
it
end
is
up
going
in
to be
the
wild. It's going to be a wild ride. I'm going to try to not say get off my lawn all the time and just try to enjoy it. I mean, I will say, like, for me, I do feel like I'm just going to kind of enjoy the games because everything's different. All you got to do is make the playoff. And we're going to add the whole playoff team. That's a playoff team. Will be like a new thing in the college football lexicon. I feel like now, like we have in the pro sports, will be kind of weird, but we'll see. Be interesting.
Now, when you have an opposing fan melting down in your comments on the Twitter it'll just be like, "It's okay, man. It doesn't matter. You're going to make the playoff."
Right. Yeah, it's gonna be weird. Before I forget, because I meant to say this at the very beginning, and I'm horrible about doing this. If you don't already, make sure you go check out Dog Dispatch that John does. Another great podcast, both in audio and video form, so you can find them wherever you hear podcasts, and also check them out on YouTube. John does that with Coach Hayes. A lot of good insight on that podcast.
So good.
If you're not checking it out,
Coach Hayes is
be
great.
sure to.
So good. Hey, John, before we go, what's on the menu? What's on the menu for Clemson?
Yeah, on the menu for Clemson. So
Since we won't have you on the preview, so I figure I'd go ahead and knock it out.
Yeah, so we're gonna have an express tailgate in the Blue Lot if folks are interested in stopping by. We're gonna have a nice selection of bourbons. We'll have plenty of Hunker vodka. We will have breakfast. I think I am gonna make. Now, don't hold me to this if this doesn't really happen. But I think I am gonna make breakfast tacos wrapped up in little aluminum foil for Clemson. So little chorizo, little sausage, little bacon, egg thing. And we will also have, most importantly, there will be Weller Special Reserve and combos, because Georgia has never lost when I have showed up to a tailgate with Weller Special Reserve and combos. And so that's going to happen. So come on out. We'll have a great time.
Breakfast,
Awesome.
man.
That
Sounds
sounds
delicious.
fantastic. I will also say, again, looking ahead to Clemson, and we'll remind folks about this next week as well, but there is a Clemson Georgia Fan Fest Friday night, if you're interested in checking that out. So they've got three bands that are going to be there. Jupiter Coyote and the Pink Stones, and they were going to be there. That is Friday from 3 to 11. We'll put the link in the show notes on how you can get tickets and go check that out as well. JP, I think you may try to make it. I don't know if I'm going to be. We'll talk about that next week, but I'm coming to the game for sure.
I'm gonna try to see if John wants to go and check it out with me.
Yeah,
Nice.
I'm down.
It's at the West Side Motor Lounge on Friday.
Dude, if it's at a place called the West Side Motor Lounge,
I
I've
know,
never
right?
been, but just the name, me
It looks like a cool
and
spot.
me and JP at the West Side Motor Lounge, throwing back some brews, listening to Jupiter Coyote. I mean, just dudes being dudes. Like, that's what's going to happen. So we'll definitely be there for that.
Sweet. Well, glad we were able to make this happen. It's good to be back. John, it was great to have you join us. and Hunter and Truman made his podcast debut.
Yes. We went ahead and knocked out the superstitious. We're not superstitious, but we're a little stitious.
That's right. Right. Always got to have John and Hunter on before the season starts because that's what we always do. All right. Well, another fun episode. Great way to kick off the season. If you can't tell, I'm a little kind of, oh my gosh, things are changing. It's going to be interesting, but it's all right. That's all right. I'm going to deal with it. I'm excited. I'm ready to go. It's been a long summer and ready to go. And we'll be back. We'll be back to the normal schedule now, FYI. So for the pod, so we'll be back next week with the Clemson preview. And but like I said, be sure to go check out Dog Dispatch, follow John Tweet Sports on the socials, and that's what we got.
And Hunter Jones,
and Hunter Jones for all the uniform takes.
There may or may not be inside sources.
Yeah, we need to talk about that. We'll talk about that next week.
Well, guys, listen. In the show, Matthew Stafford may not say it, but I'm going to say "Go Dogs."
Ah, go Dogs! Yes,
Well played. Go,
well played.
Go Dogs.
I didn't even see him. They had a picture. They had a picture of the dogs, the Rams, and he wasn't in there. And someone said because
he was afraid they'd say "Go
Dogs."
Want a website with unmatched power, speed, and control? Try Bluehost Cloud, the new web hosting plan from Bluehost, built for WordPress creators by WordPress experts. With 100% uptime, incredible load times, and 24/7 WordPress priority support, your sites will be lightning fast with global reach. And with Bluehost Cloud, your sites can handle surges in traffic no matter how big. Plus, you automatically get daily backups and world-class security. Get started now at Bluehost.com.